What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here, the Quartering. I hope you're doing well, and I didn't know if you knew this, but the fans for Star Wars are in fact the ones that ruined it, and they are so evil and powerful that no matter what Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker does, whether it's good or bad, according to Matt Miller, the toxic fans will try to destroy it. Now, there will be no limit the number of articles attacking the fandom this week, even though in the run-up to Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker, Disney has done, in my opinion, a masterful job marketing. Not only did we have the Fortnite Star Wars event this past week where they had lightsabers in the game and all sorts of stuff like that to get the little kiddies excited about Star Wars, but they announced today a new Battlefront 2 that's going to kind of be inspired by, but also share the name, called The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know why I would have picked that same name, but nonetheless, people seem very excited about it. Regardless of what has happened with the Star Wars movie franchise, people have really enjoyed the video games, and I will have to commend the developers behind both of the new Star Wars games this year. I suppose we haven't seen Battlefront 2 yet, but these are two huge wins for fans of Star Wars video games. It's good to see some modern-day classics come out instead of people always saying, well, Knights of the Old Republic is the only Star Wars game worth playing. So Disney is making some good moves. However, on top of that, recent news points to more negative news for the Star Wars franchise. In fact, there are a lot of reasons, at least according to the website Motley Fool, which is a website that analyzes from a financial perspective, from an invoice or a investor standpoint, how things are going, and it doesn't look that good. I mean, there are a lot of things that are not going well for Disney. There is light traffic in terms of both of their Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme parks. There is extremely soft sales coming out of their toy division. So there's a number of issues. If we look at the fool.com, which is always an interesting choice, but you know, they posed an article that said, has Disney's Star Wars acquisition been a failure? And they talk about the fall of the House of Skywalker, including the fact that the Star Wars movie universe needs a roadmap. A once planned trilogy from Episode 8 director Rian Johnson doesn't look to be going forward, which isn't surprising given that The Last Jedi proved to be a very divisive film. CEO Bob Iger has said that the Star Wars movie universe is going on hiatus following Rise of the Skywalker, and while Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige is reportedly coming to develop a new entry into the series, it seems that the House of the Mouse is taking a more cautious approach to the property. Well, that's the thing. You can't just oversaturate the market. You can't have unending movies every year, every 2 years, because it becomes so much less of an event. Star Wars fatigue, the article continues, has been put forward as the reason the franchise has lost steam, but the cause of the fatigue is often left unaddressed, and this imprecise three-word explanation does not necessarily make a whole lot of sense in current film industry climate. Well, yeah, the Marvel films themselves kind of disprove that. And they go on to talk about how merchandise sales have softened and Galaxy's Edge is underperforming. When Disney has given color on merchandise sales in the recent years, Star Wars story has been discouraging. Sales and profits from the company's consumer product segment fell both in 2017 and 2018, and declines for Star Wars merchandise were a key factor in the slide in both years. The company stopped reporting consumer products and licensing as a separate segment in 2019. Shocking. Hasbro does this with Wizards of the Coast, and it's very frustrating. Now, in fact, as revenue stream, so it's hard to know. Star Wars' big theme park push has been disappointing as well. Despite the introduction of Galaxy's Edge section, Disney actually saw ticket sales at its parks and resorts segment fall in the third quarter, which kind of destroys that whole narrative where they were talking about forever about how, oh, well, it's just everyone's waiting till later in the year. All the season ticket holders, they're going to come. Well, they didn't. They didn't show up, just like we knew they wouldn't. Visibility on parks traffic was less cut and dried in the fourth quarter, but management comments suggest that attendance was roughly flat year over year, which would be something to consider if we were not, let's say, having a very strong financial year in this country, which we are. It'd be something to be said if you didn't just invest a fortune into a brand new section that was supposed to put butts in seats at Disneyland. So in the face of an excellent current economy and a brand new reason to go to the parks, breaking even is an embarrassment. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge can still be turned into a success story, much like the film franchise. There are reasons to be disappointed with the execution. Galaxy's Edge experience primarily centers around characters and locations from the new sequel trilogy, by the way, which nobody cares about, a move that hindsight may cast as a mistake. It makes sense that Disney would want to create synergies with their newer movies, but the company had a wealth of beloved characters and locales from earlier films to draw on, and its chosen approach looks more suspect in light of signs that interest in the sequel trilogy world and characters have diminished. All you need to do is go to Walmart and just look at the Star Wars toy section. One of two things happens. It's either fully stocked and untouched, or it is a ocean of clearanced Rose Ticos and Snokes and Cameron Poes and... Not Cameron Poe.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
Anyway, so it was a smart acquisition, Motley Fool goes on to say, but understanding that it would be difficult to describe it as a failure. But now you've seen more and more articles. This article dropped just the other day. Again, on Esquire, it doesn't matter if Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker is good or not. Toxic fans will try to destroy it. It's this age-old, everybody goes into the same basket. Are there bad actors by the way, on both sides of the fandom? Yes. There are very, very much so the shills. I would say Matt Miller would fill into that. And do you want to know why I say something like him is toxic? Is because he writes articles that say things like this. Last year, I wrote a series of articles critical of what I called toxic Star Wars fandom. So let me translate that. I attacked the fandom of a movie and lumped all their criticisms as toxic, because that's how we know these people react. And in the months since, my mentions have been a hellscape. These trolls have accused me of being a shill who works for Disney to get money and access. Well, we just saw the story earlier today. If you missed that video on Netflix, got caught paying high-priced trips for something like 400 journals, putting them up in like Hilton hotels, like, you know, thousands of dollars a night, plus paying for their plane trips and giving them express access for their consideration for awards. Let's be very honest here. They bought their awards. They bought their positive coverage. He went on to say, they've written entire blogs about it. In reality, I only make a sad journalist salary and have often been critical of Disney Star Wars. But then he goes on to say, I don't particularly mind the attacks and accusations. If anything, the tweets provide me with some bleak entertainment. I enjoy laughing at some of the depraved Twitter eggs who think threatening me will change anything about the modern Star Wars movie. Again, Star Wars movie bad, random journo most affected. He goes on to say, tweeting spoilers at me is just rude, and that's one of the more tame tactics I've seen of Star Wars trolls use over the years. In reaction to me writing about Star Wars, I've been receiving calls for me to be fired, hour-long videos, homophobic things, things about race, intimidation of my partner who appeared in images on my Instagram, and even death threats. Look, here's the common thread. Obviously, if these things are true, I disavow. You should never attack a person's physical appearance or their orientation or anything like that, and their physical characteristics over a movie or over their opinion about anything. Okay, that's out of bounds. But what I'm saying is this dude is toxic in the fact that he is clearly antagonizing the Star Wars fandom, and then he goes on to make a myriad of complaints, right, of very serious charges of the Star Wars fandom, but where is the evidence? At no point does this author, who's apparently just got mountains of interactions with a toxic Star Wars fandom, he doesn't even post a single screenshot in the entire article. And then he says, my reaction to Star Wars, the increased attacks, the increased negativity, the fandom menace, they call it. That's not unique to Star Wars. Obviously, I think we live in a time where you're not being divisive. Obviously, this is the quote. I had asked him about a fan response about Star Wars. Wait, I'm sorry. The tweets picked up in my last response in an interview I did with J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams knows about the fandom menace. It didn't matter that Abrams gave these fans the benefit of the doubt. It didn't matter that he refrained from calling them out on their deranged behavior. It didn't matter that he even admitted that there were things he also didn't like about the movies. The quote sent the so-called fandom menace into a frenzy. In response, they tweeted at me everything from lengthy manifestos of declining quality of Star Wars to poorly photoshopped anti-Semitic depictions of J.J. Abrams. To me, the message was clear. There's nothing that J.J. Abrams, that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy, that Disney or any one of those actors can do to change these people's minds about the modern era of Star Wars. That is absolutely untrue. I would say that most people are very much pleased with The Mandalorian outside of a few random nitpicks that people have. This dude just taking a few troll accounts. I'm sure that he got a few, troll images. I'm sure, because I can just tell the way that he writes. He writes antagonistically. He feeds into the toxic fandom. He is a part, whether he wants to say it or not, of that exact same toxic fandom. And when you have journalists like this jerk constantly antagonizing fans and casting aspersions on them and dismissing their criticisms, I would argue that he is as much, if not more, of a part of any toxic fandom out there. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.